Guess what? Only 9 days ago, we started the fundraiser for the Norwegian Refugee Council, and I set the goal at $2,000. Well, today we reached $2,000, and there's still many days left of the fundraiser. So now that we reached 2,000, let's see how high we can go. Now, when I started the fundraiser, I promised I would donate, or my family would donate $1,000, and we'd also match the first 1,000. So I'll add both of that in as soon as possible. Now, my employer, LinkedIn, also supports up to $1,000 of donations from each employee, and I'll make my LinkedIn Gives donation go towards the NRC as well. That won't show up on the fundraising page, but it'll go to the NRC. So this is great news. Now, as I've explained in every single video I've been posting over the last 9 days, this is an AMA series I'm doing in support of the fundraiser. So you ask me questions and I try to answer them. Today I have a question from Daniel that came through LinkedIn, but that still works. It's the same thing. And it's a question I get a lot, so it's something I think I need to answer. Daniel's question is quite simply, why is it so hard to learn JavaScript? And if you're one of the people who have tried to learn JavaScript or have actually learned JavaScript or work with JavaScript in your everyday or in your hobby or anything else, you know that JavaScript is a challenge, especially if you come from other web languages. So if you're used to HTML and CSS, you're used to markup languages, and when it comes to JavaScript, things change. Now, the simple answer to the question, why is it so hard to learn JavaScript, is unlike HTML and CSS, which are markup languages that describe documents, JavaScript is a scripting language, meaning you are talking to the computer and telling it how to do things, which means you have to speak a computer language. So you have to use logic and conditions and objects and all sorts of other advanced functionality to get things to work the way you want them to. And the way computers think and the way we give computers algorithm is fundamentally different from how humans work in pretty much every way. Computers are strict logic engines, whereas humans are more something else. Not logic engines, that's for sure. So simply put, the reason why it's so hard to learn JavaScript is because you have to learn to think like a computer. A more elaborate answer is, it's often hard to learn JavaScript because we try to do everything at once. And the trick with JavaScript is the only way to learn it well is to understand not just how to write JavaScript itself, but understand when to use what. So when to use functions, when to use anonymous functions, when to use objects, when to use arrays, when to use classes, and all this other stuff. And the only real way of learning that is by seeing something in the real world that you want to create, come up with some problem or have a problem that you need to solve, and then figure out how to do it using JavaScript. And therein lies the challenge. When you try to learn JavaScript, you watch a course like my LinkedIn Learning course, JavaScript Essential Training, or you read one of a million books that's written on JavaScript, or you watch some other courses, or you watch a whole bunch of courses and read a bunch of books, and all of them give you archetypal examples of how to use JavaScript to solve specific tasks. For some people, that is a great way of learning. For other people, it's not. Like myself, I don't really learn well by seeing how to solve a problem. I need to solve a problem of my own using the same techniques for it to truly stick. So the way I taught myself JavaScript and the way I keep teaching myself JavaScript as JavaScript evolves is by constantly finding problems and finding new ways of solving them. And instead of taking on giant tasks, what I try to do is pare down each problem into the smallest common piece and common denominator, and then solve that little piece, and then add on a little bit more complication, and then add a bit more complication, and that way you build out larger scripts. And this is a great way of not only of learning JavaScript, but also of learning how to write better code. So if you are trying to learn JavaScript, and you should if you're working on the web, what I suggest you do is start with something really small. Start in the browser using the command line tools and or the developer tools, and open the console and try to just act on existing content within the browser. So figure out how to target individual elements, look at how you can change their attributes and how you can change their behaviors and their content to get an idea of how JavaScript acts on the DOM, the document object model. Once you have a firm grasp of how to interact with elements within an existing DOM in a page in the browser, then you can start looking at more advanced things like adding in objects and working with arrays and working with larger functions. And over time, you'll be able to piece together how all this stuff works and how you can work with it. The good news is this is 2018 and we have ECMAScript 2015, also known as ES6 and or JavaScript Next and a bunch of other things. This is a whole new level of advancement in JavaScript that actually makes JavaScript much easier to work with. So in the past, JavaScript was rather complicated because it didn't have all these new features that exist, like constants and lets and arrow functions and all these other features that actually make it easier to write JavaScript. So if you're coming to JavaScript now, you're actually coming to JavaScript at the right time. It used to be much harder to learn. That doesn't mean it's easy to learn. And it gets more complicated because you often see people talk about JavaScript frameworks and say you need to learn a framework like Angular or React or Vue or something else. And that's true, you need to learn them, but you need to learn JavaScript itself first. If you don't understand JavaScript, you might be able to do stuff with the frameworks, but you'll never fully understand what's going on. So if you're just starting out, just learning JavaScript, stick to the basics. Actually understand what's going on in the DOM, figure out how the main pieces work, and then slowly build your knowledge. Don't try to eat the entire cake at once. Take small pieces, eat them, and then continue. It's the best tip I can give you. JavaScript is hard, but everything is hard. The reason why JavaScript seems harder is because it's not as easy as HTML and CSS. But trust me, anyone can learn it. It just requires taking the time necessary to learn it properly. That's the answer I have. This is the AMA session for the Morten is an Old fundraiser for the Norwegian Refugee Council. If you have a question you want me to answer, just send it in on the site for the fundraiser. If you want to contribute to the fundraiser, I'd really appreciate it. You can do that from the site as well. Just click on donate to the NRC and make your donation. And if you just want to share this video series, you can. Just go on social media, share it using the hashtag, and someone else will see it, and maybe they'll submit a question or donate or both. Who knows? Until tomorrow, have a good evening.